least in a tournament. I mean, you can have fun wrestling the fish out on lighter line when you're fun fishing. But if you're money fishing, I really recommend really heavy tackle for this type of stuff.
And one thing is that you really will pick this apart big time, not just 5 casts.
Right, yeah. Yeah, we've made 10, 12 casts, and I've got one beautiful backlash here. And that does happen. But we're covering every bit of this tree. Really picking it apart, slowly, methodically. Now that doesn't match up with our pattern.
Right.
You know, our pattern is to move, find isolated brush, isolated trees, some kind of isolated cover, and that's where the fish are. But a lot of times you may pick that 1 or 2 bigger fish of the day
right
off of something like this, and that's why we're taking the time to do it. There's one, Bob. I got him. Good. Talk about a surprise.
Yeah.
Another one on the crankbait, way up shallow.
And as a little fish are they're just swimming along that bank.
Yep. They're following the bank up, and we're kind of intercepting them. Hopefully we'll luck into a bigger one here pretty soon. But it looks like we've got the pattern on the small ones.
Yeah, and the bank that you said when we pulled into this spot, again, it's more shallower.
Right,
bank.
This is a different bank. If you notice if you look up in here, the bank is flatter, it's a little swampier looking, and a lot of times these banks have a darker bottom, and the water back here will tend to heat up faster. You know, a lot of times fish will congregate in these areas. Now when it gets hot in the summer, it's probably one of the first places that they'll move out of. But in the spring, it's a good bet. That is a pretty good isolated piece of wood over here, Bob. There's one, Bob. Got this one on a spinnerbait. There we go.
Yeah, nice one.
Again, isolated wood, another fat one. See, now this is definitely a female. You can see how fat it is.
Oh yeah, you can see it.
Yep.
Peeking out.
Getting ready to spawn.
Yep.
Had both hooks off of isolated wood again. And a trailer hook on the spinnerbait. Always a trailer hook on the spinnerbait. But that's definitely a better fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get another one.
Yeah.
There's one, Bob. Back in this dirtier water. Not quite as big as the others, but they'll do.
And again, we're just fishing that flat bank, coming up on it. Look at him.
Yeah, he got it pretty good too.
Yeah.
He crushed it.
2 hooks.
2 hooks, and he's got it.
It's a fat little fish too, though.
Yep. Another male moving up. And yeah, we're on this flatter bank. We got a little bit different water color here. You know, it's a little dingier here.
Right. Yeah.
And the fish are hitting the spinnerbait. It seems like the deeper water, the fish wanted the crankbait. You know, we actually have 2 patterns going. You know, we have a crankbait pattern going on a little bit steeper bank with isolated wood and pads. And then on the shallower banks, you know, we're catching them on a spinnerbait.
Yeah.
Again, isolated stuff, and they're not everywhere, and we have to work for them.
Yeah, when you come up on a spot, you got to start looking at picking it apart.
Yeah. Yep. You have to look at it and say, okay, there's a little lane between the pads, or there's a clump of pads, or there's a stick in the pads, you know, and that's where the fish are coming from, those type of spots. You know, it's almost getting easier to call.
Yeah. Steve, we've come down this bank here with a lot of overhangs and stuff like that. Now I know we're coming up to a piece of structure here that's isolated. Now how are you going to fish that with that crankbait?
Well, I think the most important thing, Bob, is angle. If you were to throw to this log and reel it across the log, you're really fishing a wrong angle. What you need to do is throw out and reel alongside the log, reel the lure down the log. So I'm going to cast up in there. We want to wind it right down the log. Oh, there's one, Bob. There's a swinger. I think he's got it pretty good.
He's got it pretty good.
Yep. There we go.
In the boat.
On the carpet a little bit, but in the boat.
And again, that fish, Steve, right off that piece of...
Right off the end of that log, threw it in there, kind of parallel the log, and it just stopped.
Right, that was really pretty close up, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a little shallower. Well, you know what? It's probably low 70s right now.
Right.
You know, the water's getting a little warmer.
Yep.
Fish are getting a little more amped up. Tell you what, I hooked them pretty good too. Wasn't getting away. It's funny, in tournaments they're always barely hooked. This one's got it with 3 hooks.
Again, he took it right across, almost right across his mouth.
Right across his mouth. I mean,
Yeah.
fish definitely wanted it.
Look how big and fat
Yep.
that is in
Yep, definitely moving up the spawn.
there. Yep.
Yep, good fish. Get it right back in the water here. But on the crankbait again.
On that crankbait.
Seems to be the deal.
There you go. All right, look at this, right at the boat. Now that fish followed me out and hit right by the boat.
Yeah,
Oh, nice little chunk.
yeah.
Again,
And
off those pads.
And on a crankbait.
Yep. On a crankbait.
See what happens when he puts down the Senko, folks? He actually catches something.
I've been trying to avoid this.
Yeah.
All right. It came out right out here and hit the boat.
I think there's another one here. On the spinnerbait. We'll just ski him right in here.
A little buck.
Yep, another little guy. But you know what I say, Bob? They all count as one.
That's it.
Get back here. Let's get another one now. Right up there in them pads. There he is, Bob. Got one on the spinnerbait. There we go. On the spinnerbait.
Yep.
Yep, there he is.
Nice one. Nice one.
Yep.
Again, off a piece of
Piece of wood,
Right.
isolated near some pads on a flat bank. And I mean, it's not a big fish, but it definitely goes on with the pattern of the keeper fish have been on the flatter banks, isolated cover or pads. And that one came on a spinnerbait.
yeah. That's not as fat as some of the other ones we've had.
No. But again, it's a keeper.
Yep.
You know, I was taking it and I was reeling it right through the bush. I had hit the bush, and a lot of times what you want to do is, as it comes through a bush or an obstruction or hits it, you know, some people like to just flutter it or just
Right,
take
yeah.
it. And one of the things I like to do is I like to pop it a couple times. You know, you watch the pros and stuff on TV and they're constantly popping.
Moving that.
You know, they're giving the bait a little motion. You know, you're not just throwing it out and winding it in. I think that's one of the big keys to catching fish on a spinnerbait, especially in open water. You know, if you're not bouncing off of something, you're kind of creating that deflection.
Right.
You know, and in this case, you know, it worked well. And that fish had both hooks again.
Yep.
Had the trailer hook and the main hook. So they definitely want it. They're nice and aggressive. But as we get closer to the spawn, I think you're going to find the fish aren't going to be as aggressive. You know, they're thinking more on bedding than eating. And what you wind up with is a lot of short strikers.